Okay, so now that we know how to evaluate the 6 trig functions using our calculator, now we want to go backwards. Believe it or not, what your calculator can do is you can actually give the calculator the decimal number and it can compute what the angle measure was going to be. But again, you're going to have to read your directions, because if I'm asking you to find me an angle, I may ask for the angle in degrees or I may ask for the angle in radians. So let's look at the directions first to understand how you're going to know the difference. This says find the value of theta. Well, we all know theta represents an angle. So by saying this, we know we're looking for a missing angle. But then it says in the interval from 0 to 90 degrees. So this right here indicates they want all the angle measurements in degrees. And they may be more specific and say round it to the nearest second. They may say DMS form. They may say decimal degrees to the nearest tenth. So you're going to have to read. But this is the giveaway. They want this angle theta to the nearest degrees. Over here, it says find the value of theta. So again, theta is an angle. We're looking for a missing angle. But now it says in the interval from 0 to pi over 2. Pi over 2 is not degrees. What is that, people? That's radians. So that means when we give these answers for the angles, they want it in radian measure. So again, before you ever start typing in your calculator, you have to be in the correct mode. When we work these examples and find the angle, we got to be in degree mode. When we work these examples and we find the angle, we got to be in radian mode. If you're in the wrong mode, you're not going to get the correct answer. So right now, everybody take your calculator, put it in degree mode, okay, because we're going to do degrees first. Now let's think about this. Let's think about this related to algebra. If I write this on the board, let's just go back to algebra. If I write x plus 2 equals 5, and I say to solve that equation, simple algebra 1 linear equation, you all know to get the x by itself, the opposite of adding 2 would be subtracting 2. And that would cancel out, and that give you x equals 3, your solution. So we know to isolate a term in an equation, we have to move anything over by doing the opposite operation. If I wrote this equation, 3x equals 6, and I said solve that equation from algebra, we know that this is connected by multiplication, the 3 and the x. So to move multiply by 3, we do the opposite operation. We divide by 3. And we would get x equals 2, correct? All right. So we've learned since elementary school, adding and subtracting are opposite operations, which are called inverses. Multiplying and dividing are opposite operations, which are called inverses. You learned in college algebra, if I have the equation x squared equals 9, to get rid of a square, you would do the opposite, which is a square root. Look familiar? And we all know, because squaring and square roots are opposites, just like add and subtract and just like multiply, divide, they cancel out, and that's how we got good old x. And we knew from algebra the square root of 9 is both positive and negative 3. So we have learned every operation in math has an opposite that will undo it. And those opposites, those inverse operations, cancel out. Well, the same thing in trig, guys. These are technically, if you look at this is an equation. It has an equal sign. And they want us to find the value of theta. They want us to get this symbol by itself. Well, the problem is you can't just take the word sin and move it. Remember, anytime you write trig, there's got to be an angle with it. So you can't separate that word, that abbreviation, from that angle. So the way we're going to tell the calculator to figure out what the angle is we're going to tell the calculator, do the opposite of what we just learned to do. If we typed SIN in the calculator and put a number behind it, the calculator knows when I hit the button sine, cosine, tangent, and we put a number behind it, the calculator knows that number behind those words are angles, and if I give you the angle, the calculator spits out a number. Today we want the calculator to go backwards. We want to put in the calculator this number, this decimal, this decimal, this decimal. And we want the calculator to spit out an angle. So to tell the calculator to do it backwards, we're not going to hit sine or cosine or tangent. We're going to hit their inverse buttons. Let's go to the calculator and see what those buttons are. All right. So everybody follow me. Here we go. Let's get out the 3i30 x2s. All right, I want everybody to look. I'm going to blow it up. So let me zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. All right. You see your button, sine, cosine, and tangent? We just used those a minute ago. Do you see above them in blue, sine with a -1, cosine with a -1, and tangent with a -1? These three buttons, these three words in blue, mean for the calculator to go backwards, to do the opposite. All right. First of all, let's fix my calculator. Right now, my calculator is in what mode? Radians. I need it to be in degrees. So let's go fix that first. Let's go to D, and let's back up to degrees and make sure you hit enter. So now I'm in degrees. So I want everybody to think about this. If I type in the calculator sine, it's expecting an angle. So let me put sine at 30 degrees. I would get out that decimal, 5/10. What we want to do today is go backwards. I'm giving you the decimal 5/10 and it wants the angle. So the way we type that in the calculator, when we have a decimal and we want the angle, we don't hit sine, we hit this above button, this inverse button. So we go second and hit it. And see how I put the little -1? That's telling the calculator to go backwards. That's telling the calculator, hey calculator, we're about to type in a decimal number. Our decimal number was 5/10. I want you, the calculator, to spit out an angle. Hit equals, and there's the angle, 30 degrees. So that's what those buttons are. These buttons up here are your inverses. They're going backwards. So when you hit sine, cosine, and tangent, that tells the calculator, I'm giving you an angle, you give me a number. When I use sine inverse, cosine inverse, and tangent inverse, I'm telling the calculator, I'm giving you a number, calculator, you give me out an angle. So that's all we had to type. When I want an angle, I got to have the -1 that shows the inverse. Now let's do the pro. Okay, here's the pro. What mode am I in, people? Uh-oh, I'm in radians. What mode do I want to be in? Degrees. So let's go to mode. Let's arrow back to degrees. I'm on it. Hit enter so it highlights it. Now to get out of that, you got to hit second, quit. Now I'm in degree mode. Oh, calculator, I want to find an angle. I'm using the function sine. So I don't hit sine if I want an angle. Now on the pro, watch. It's the same button. If I hit that button once, it puts up sine. But if I double click it, and let me widen out so you can see me do it. If I double click, 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 see how the -1 appeared? Let me do that again so y'all can see it. It's the same button. There's sine and sine inverse. I want the inverse because I'm going to find an angle. So I click once, I click twice. There it is. Now I put in my decimal, 0 and 5/10, and here comes my angle, 30 degrees. I know it's degrees because I'm in degree mode. See how easy that is? Okay, let's do the next one. It's cosine. I want the angle. So I don't want to hit just the cosine button. If I want the angle, I want that inverse. On the pro, I double click. There's the inverse button. Do not cut this decimal off. You will not get the accurate angle measurement. You have to type the whole decimal number in. And there it is. Now, that angle measurement didn't come out to be a whole angle like we got them in to go 30 degrees. So you're going to have to read. In the directions here, it says to go to the nearest 10,000. So you would write 45 decimal point 5264, but you got to make sure you put the degree symbol because this angle is in degrees. If you do not label this answer as a degree, I have to mark you wrong. Okay, on the TI-30, we're going to go, here's cosine. I don't want cosine. I'm getting an angle. I need this word in blue. So that's why we have the second button. Second cos. Type in the same decimal. Close it. Hit equals. There's the same angle measurement. I know I'm in degrees. There's the degree. So when you write this answer for theta and you say theta equals, make sure you put the degree symbol. All right, we'll do the third one, the tangent. So I want an angle, so I'm going to hit not tan, I'm going to hit second tan. Type in that lovely decimal, the whole thing. Don't you dare cut it off. Close it. Hit equals. There's that angle. Now everybody look at me. If it's set to the nearest 10,000th, 1, 2, 3, 4 positions, there's a 9. Behind it's a 9. So that would round up to 10. So I'd put a 0, carry a 1. That would be a 10. Put a 0, carry a 1. That would be a 10. Put a 0, carry a 1. That would be a 10. Put a 0, carry a 1. That would be a 10. Put a 0, carry a 1. So if I rounded that, that would really be 30.0000 degrees. Go with me? On the Pro, all you have to do to get the inverse button for angles, the opposite, is double click. Once, twice. That's all you have to do. And the same thing, you type in that decimal and close it. Pretty easy. Everybody's with me? Now we got the issue. The last expression, cosecant theta equals with that decimal. We got a problem, guys. We still don't have a cosecant button on here. So just like we learned a minute ago, to do cosecant, we're going to need to use its reciprocal function sine. Because we're finding an angle, we don't want to just hit sine, we want to hit second sine. So I'm going to go to sine, double click in the Pro. I'm going to type that number in. 86147. Everybody with me? So by doing the inverse, this is telling the calculator, I'm giving you a decimal calculator, I want you to spit out an angle. Right now, if I hit equals, I get an error. Because right now, let me go back to the window. Right now, the calculator's reading, you want the angle for sine. Well, there is no angle for sine that would spit out that decimal value. Okay, there is none. I don't care how many degrees that angle was. You'll never get a sine value that big. And we could talk about that later on in the semester. Why? But understand, here's the problem. You wanted the value for cosecant, and right now you're using sine. So just like we did a minute ago, we got to use our reciprocal button. On this, when you're finding an angle, you can't wait to hit equals, get an answer, and do the reciprocal of that. Because think about it. When you give the calculator this decimal, the calculator is supposed to spit out an angle. People, you can't do a reciprocal of an angle. You can't take 45 degrees and flip it. So what you need to do is you need to make this work in the calculator. You have no choice. There is no button for cosecant. You have to use sine. Okay? Because we're finding an angle, you're going to put the reciprocal button on this. You want the calculator to flip this. This is a decimal, a number. The calculator can flip this number. The number, when it flips, it would be the number for cosecant, and evaluate the angle, and you'll have the correct angle. So on the Pro, this -1 means I'm finding an angle. I don't want the angle for sine. I want the angle for cosecant. So I have to do the reciprocal of this number. So now I'll go back to my reciprocal button and type in my little -1, just like we did a minute ago. I'm going to close the whole thing. So the calculator understands, take this decimal, this -1 means flip it. It will flip that. If it flips that decimal, then it's not the decimal for sine, it would be the decimal for cosecant. And if I arrow back just so you understand, this -1 is telling the calculator, give me the angle. So that's how we're going to get the angle for cosecant. So if I hit equals, here comes my angle. It's 46 point something degrees. That's not that hard. Let's do it on the 30. On the 30, again, I want to do cosecant. I don't have a cosecant button. I'm going to have to use sine. Because I want to find an angle, I'm going to hit second sine. I'm going to type the decimal in. Everybody's good? All right, here's the problem. You can't hit equals now because the calculator can't get an answer. Okay? Right now the calculator is thinking you want the angle measurement for sine. The only way the calculator is going to know you want the angle measurement for cosecant is to flip this decimal. So now I'll go get my reciprocal button, my x to the -1, and hit it. And now if I hit equals, I get out that same angle, that 46-point-something degrees. All right? Is everybody good? All righty. Everybody come back to the board. So what you're needing to understand is if I want the calculator to find an angle theta, I'm not going to hit sine, cosine, or tangent. I'm going to hit the inverse button. Sine and -1, cosine and -1, tangent and -1. Now, these last two examples in the calculator, we have to watch our directions. I still want to find the angle theta, but when it says from 0 to pi over 2, that's in radian measure. So that means to get this angle in radian measure, I have to be in what mode? Radian mode. So let's go to our calculator, put ourselves in radian mode. Okay. Here's the TI-30. I know I'm in degree mode. There it is. Where do I go to change mode? I go here to DRG. I want radians. I arrow over. I hit equals. Now I'm in radian mode. On the Pro, I'm in degree mode. I don't want degree mode. I go to mode. I arrow over to radians, and I hit enter. Oh, I went over too many. All right, there I am. When radians is blinking, you're in radian mode. To get out of that window, I hit second, quit. I'm in radian mode. Now, we're going to do the same thing now, guys. If I want an angle, I'm not going to hit sine. I'm going to hit the inverse button. On the Pro, it's just double clicking. On the Pro, there's the inverse. I double click, and then I type that exact decimal. And I close it. That angle, I know it's weird. It's not 1 degrees. What mode are you in? You're in radian mode. So that angle is in radians. And again, on your homework, it will tell you to round. I think it says to round to the nearest 10,000th again. So the 10,000 spot would be the digit 1. That would round up to 2. Again, sine inverse tells the calculator I want an angle. If you're telling the calculator to give me an angle, you have to type behind it a decimal. All right, let's try it in the 30. In the 30. All right, good. I'm in radian mode. I want to do the inverse, so it's in blue. So that's why I hit second sine. I type the same decimal. Close it, hit equals. That's the same exact angle in radians. If it's in radians, do you put a degree symbol? Oh, no. All right, let's do one more. Again, I have cosecant theta equals that decimal. There is no button for cosecant, so you have to use its buddy, its reciprocal, which is sine. Because I want an angle, I'm not going to hit sine, I'm going to hit second sine in the 30. I'm going to put that decimal in. But again, guys, oh, I typed it wrong. Let me go back. It's 1/9. There we go. Okay, so there's my decimal in. Again, I don't want to close it yet because this decimal value would be if I want the angle for sine. I don't want the angle for sine. I want it for cosecant, so I have to tell the calculator, flip this first. The calculator can only flip decimals. It cannot flip angles. So you have to flip this. So I have to hit my little -1 button and close it. Then the calculator will do what's inside first. It will do the reciprocal of this decimal. It will flip it and then give me out the angle. And that's that angle in radian measure. Everybody's good? All right, let's try it one more time on the Pro. So I'm in radians. I do not have a cosecant button, so I'm going to have to use sine. But again, I want an angle, so I want the inverse. I'm going to double click to get that little -1. That -1 tells the calculator on the trig function, give me the angle. I'll type my decimal in. But right now, this is not good enough. If I just leave this the way it is, and I close it and I hit equals, the calculator gives me an error. Because the calculator read that as you wanted the angle for sine. So let me go back. What I need to do here is do the reciprocal of this decimal. So on the Pro, I'm going to go get my reciprocal button right here. I'm going to type in my little -1. And here we go. Same thing. So that's the only trick. Okay? So, I'm coming back to the board. In conclusion, to find a missing angle using your calculator is great. Make sure you're in the correct mode first. And then if you're doing the reciprocals, you're doing the reciprocal of the decimal I started with. You're not going to hit equals and do the reciprocal of the answer, because when you do find an angle, you can't reciprocate that. Okay? Now, after we move on to the next section, you're going to realize we're going to use our calculators a lot. So you have to be really, really skilled at using your calculator. Practice, practice, practice. Because in the next couple of sections, that's all we're going to do, is we're going to use trig to solve problems. And yes, we're going to need our calculators to do the arithmetic. Awesome. I'll see you in the next video.